Out of the first 6 FNAF games, one that is almost unanimously hated by a majority of the fanbase is Sister Location. And while, yes, I can understand certain aspects we'll get to later, a large amount of the fanbase's hate oddly appeared after a particular video released. And I'm not calling FNAF fans blind sheep that follow the crowd or anything, but it feels like the popularity of Sister Location greatly decreased. Nothing like the hate of Security Beach, but the hate for this game became very noticeable. And as said earlier, I can understand the hate Sister Location gets. It's still honestly my third favourite game in the series. I don't want anyone to watch this video and take it as a way of me trying to convince anyone who despises this game to change their mind, however. I just want to share mine and potentially everyone else who likes this game's viewpoint, in the hopes that those in the FNAF community that hate on the minority that do like this game, as well as any other game in the series, understand the perspective on a stronger level. Sister Location's build up was honestly amazing. The game began to build up anticipation through multiple unique formats, starting with Update 2 in FNAF World, which, by completing the update, we return to the guy in the centre of the room as he talks about his new idea for a character, being Baby. The lights cut out and...
The show will begin momentarily. Everyone, please stay in your seats.
Unlike the other cartoony, stylized voices we've seen throughout this update, this feels a lot more robotic and serious, teasing the character will have a greater role as the future games release. This anticipation paid off when the Sister Location trailer released, revealing the full design of Circus Baby and her group of characters, including Balora, Funtime Foxy, again a character from FNAF World, and Funtime Freddy. This trailer, while extremely vague, immediately showed off some both interesting but concerning concepts, particularly shots of crawling through vents, gave people the idea that free roam would be introduced. This both excited and scared fans, some glad some new gameplay opportunities are available, while others are scared of over-ambition and not being able to adjust to a new unique type of gameplay. Regardless, Sister Location released and still remains relatively well received on Steam at least. In Sister Location, we descend down the elevator every night to work as a janitor, which is still more respectable a job than a goddamn security guard, and have to complete chores around the location. I'm trying to keep this relatively vague, even though the game is like 9 years old at this point, but still, this is why I like Sister Location. This game immediately introduces 2 different things, one being the immediate sense of scene, everything around us being very robotic and futuristic. As we descend down, the only noise breaking the silence of the elevator ride is a robotic voice who we'll get to in a second. I think, while not immediately suggesting it, it creates very subtle horror through fear in the unknown. Throughout everything we've been through throughout the series, it's always been grounded in a somewhat man-made, simple design, especially after 4, where we are stripped to our bedroom doors and flashlight, no cameras or anything. Then cut the next game, technology surrounds us, heading deeper underground. On the complete other hand, my biggest problem with this game in particular is Andy Field's hand unit. I honestly think hand units could work, but unfortunately he feels like a real swing and a miss. Characters like Phone Guy are very similar but don't take away from the fear. If I was to narrow down why, it's because Phone Guy is just clearly a person reading out Fazbear Entertainment's abysmal treatment of employees, but clearly coming from someone lying to us, but still at risk of the monsters, so he just sounds very nervous and on edge. Well, Hand Unit has the same concept, and in theory it should work, because Hand Unit quite literally is an automated response feeding us lies, only to get us killed. He should be able to work perfectly fine, but what went so wrong is Scott didn't know when to give him a rest. What makes Phone Guy work is, other than the first night, he only takes up half of one of the 6 hours, and then throws us into the loop to fend for ourselves. If the same principle was used with Hand Unit, where he only talks once in a blue moon, it It would not only build the dread and suspense when he leaves us, making us feel isolated in a world belonging to these creatures, but also gives us a sense of relief when he returns, giving us a rewarding feeling, which makes hand unit lying to us feel like we cannot win and have to act on our own senses to survive against the odds. We continue on until we reach the room between Funtime Auditorium and Balora Gallery. Our task is to flash the windows of both rooms to make sure the animatronics are on their corresponding stages. If not, we trigger a controlled shock to get them back on stage. Once completing, we head to Circus Gallery to do the same routine, and then the night is just over. I fully agree with the argument that this night is extremely mediocre. Sure enough, it does an interesting and solid job introducing us to the environment and chores we're going to complete over our nights underground. There is very little gameplay or visual wise to interest anyone. Maybe if there was some form of subtle details to warn us of something sinister occurring, like maybe when we flash our light in the Funtime Auditorium, Funtime Foxy's looking at us through the glass. Just something to make the very shallow gameplay feel warranted to show something interesting. The end of night cutscenes where we watch the relationship drama between a woman, Clara, and her boyfriend Vlad, arguing about who the father is. It feels like the perfect level of comedy provided between nights, similar to aspects in games like Pizza Sim, where we're able to decompress before continuing on with another night. And while the incentive isn't as strong as Pizza Sim, where you get to play all the games you like, building up excitement during the nighttime sections, and works as a pushing factor to get you through the scarier sections, but also building dread to the inevitability that you will have to return to the horror sections once you've run out of money and play tokens. Sister Location's TV does not work in the same way, but it shouldn't have to. I like how simple it is, creating a reward to look forward to and relieve stress without being as elaborate as the game's follower. Before going into it, it's probably worth mentioning Night 2 is seen as the best of all 5 nights. It has the greatest amount of content and feels the most consistent quality wise. Beginning with Circus Gallery's vent section, the power goes out, and as previously mentioned, I really wish hand unit was to completely go out in this section of the game, leaving us in the complete darkness as every door and security measure used to protect us from everything established gets disabled, until a voice we can tell is Circus Baby helps us by describing a hidey hole under the desk that worked for the previous guard. This section really should have been on the first night as a method of introducing us to the threat opposing us. After getting us comfortable in the environment, the gameplay is kind of awful in most of this game, which is the biggest problem in the main story. However, sections like this perfectly build the suspense states able to blanket the underwhelming gameplay, which in my eyes is the teased free roam gameplay, causing them to expect a larger focus over the horror, meaning many were underwhelmed by the focus on suspense and horror. The section, however, where we sit behind a very thin, worn down sheet of metal as we hear many creatures clambering through the very vents we use to enter and will have to use to exit. As the crawling stops, faint whispering can be heard. Something outside is communicating to something else, and they know we're inside. What makes this scene so suspenseful is it is explicitly designed to just barely stop moving, no matter how hard we grasp at the specific point just before they jump scare us, feeling like we only just managed to survive a creature the size of a newborn baby. It gets pretty ominous when they realise that she's watching, as if relief that we have a somewhat powerful ally, but also worried about the threat Baby presents. Unfortunately, we don't get to see that power, and when we do in later games, each time it is unbelievably underwhelming. A big problem everyone unanimously agrees on is that Circus Baby's screen time is very scarce throughout Sister Location. Considering she's the main selling factor and key character on all the promotional material, no, it's not my first time. I know the whole point of Sister Location is, spoiler alert, by the way, Baby is trying to trick us but take advantage of the whole deaths aren't canon sections. Like the Night 5 code would be so cool if Baby's empty shell just sprang to life. I think overall, Baby really could have used a few more scenes. Like as previously mentioned, Baby's face slowly appearing from the glass after the power cuts out, making it perfectly clear who's in control in this situation, would be really effective, and if we want to get out alive, this is our best chance. We return back and Hand Unit gives us the advice to avoid Balora. As we military crawl through Balora Gallery, he advises us to rush through as quickly as possible. In doing so, he would die. This provides a very weird continuation on the whole Fazbear Entertainment wanting us dead. My question being, why the hell do they want to kill us? They are much like the animatronics where they aren't explicitly possessed by anything. More so to be hostile in this case, they have been programmed to kill the night shift workers, meaning us, unfortunately. What makes this even more interesting is the fact Circus Baby mentioning the hidey hole was made by another worker, which seemingly worked for him, suggesting there is a particular pattern Fazbear Entertainment has set up for every worker underground. I find this reveal, while confusing, very interesting. Every time throughout the game we beat the odds, we get some form of punishment for surviving, like the start of Night 3 where he docks our pay for not dying. It just feels very intriguing that they actually want us to die for whatever unexplained reason. Balora Gallery is definitely one of the best sections of the game. This is one of the sections where the gameplay is neglected intentionally to shift the focus towards the horror and atmosphere. The room is blanketed in pure darkness and we're left to crawl in a straight line towards the other side of the room. Every time we hear faint music projecting through the echoey darkness, we have to stay perfectly still. If we don't react in time, we get the most brick-shitting jump scare in the game. This jump scare in particular, as well as every other jump scare in the main story, catches you off guard really well. The welcoming cartoony faces snap away, and we face the harsh metallic teeth and wires, while the huge eyes remain. Baloras and Funtime Foxes are particularly effective because both come from complete darkness and really catch you off guard. I also think the jump scare noise is perfect. It feels really high pitched and loud. Reaching the breaker room, we are tasked with manually restoring power to each room, and while I still believe Help Wanted 2 does this better, the suspense of having to take your eyes off of Funtime Freddy for increasing amounts of time, knowing he is gradually getting closer and closer to us, is what might be the most genuine stressful section of the game. We know it's up to us to finish restoring power and escaping this room. It's also very interesting looking to what we're restoring power to. We can notice specific areas we're restoring power to being not just this location, but also a specific area, this being highly speculated to be the Afton House. Funtime Freddy out of the main roster is probably the scariest to me. Personality-wise, from what we know about the lore, Circus Baby is the only one of the four to be possessed by anyone, specifically William Afton's daughter Elizabeth. The question being, what the hell is Funtime Freddy's problem? Compared to the others, he's unbelievably sadistic in both this game and the other media he appears in, so either William Afton programmed him to be psychopathic, or he is possessed by someone, in which case, what the hell is his problem? Giving him a voice surprisingly makes him a hell of a lot more scary than if he was just dead silent. We complete the breaker room and return back through Balora Gallery and finish night 2. Night 3 is honestly very bare bones considering this is the medium difficulty in the game, having to balance the simplicity of the early nights while introducing the challenge of the later nights, specifically night 4, for this game at least. The Funtime Auditorium section, in my opinion at least, is better than the Balora Gallery when it comes to building suspense. At least each time we walk through the pure darkness, we're forced to use a flash beacon to see if anything or anyone is in our path. If not, move forward, not knowing whether or not we take a step too far and will be greeted with a loud scare, which makes the flash beacon feel just that more effective. It feels extremely loud but brief, meaning you aren't sure whether or not you saw something in the distance that will be hostile towards us, or you're just hallucinating and wasting precious time. The parts and service section is fine enough. There's not much worth mentioning here, but I do find the concept that Bonbon is its own animatronic interesting. In this minigame, we just push buttons in a particular order with no punishment for failing or incentive for winning, until we're tasked with pushing Bonbon's central button, made to be intentionally difficult, until you abuse that glitch that basically just ensures a 100% victory rate. We return through and surprisingly get a forced Funtime Foxy jump scare, no matter how well or how hard you try to avoid it, because it's scripted. The Night 4 minigame is probably one of the most hated minigames in the entire FNAF series, mostly because of its intense increase in difficulty from everything else we've experienced, but to be completely honest, I really like it. Yes, I understand it's unnecessarily difficult even after the patch made just to make it easier, but I think this section of difficulty is the only section in the game where you need to employ strategy to effectively win, other than the private room. We've been trapped in a springlock suit by Circus Baby for a completely unknown reason, which honestly just makes Baby feel even more suspicious over anything, but oh well. We have to spend 3 to 4 minutes winding up the springlocks. However, while doing so, we have to shake off whatever mini-arenas are on us before they reach the top of the suit and kill us. These mechanics very clearly counteract each other, as shaking makes the springlocks loose. This is why I love this minigame. You have two very imperative mechanics that both very clearly work against each other. Focusing on the springlocks causes the mini arenas to go unnoticed, meaning they are more likely to reach the top and kill us. While shaking off the mini arenas loosens the springlocks, meaning a strategy has to be put into effect that divides our attention between the springlocks and mini arenas. To do so, I recommend starting at the top on the left side and gradually winding up the springlocks. Turn to the other side and the mini arena will begin to crawl the right side of the top, and the left mini arena will be halfway up. Rinse and repeat until halfway through, where the rate of mini arenas increase and the springlocks loose and speed up increases gradually. I love this in particular because it's able to increase the difficulty over the night, so the player has to adapt naturally, changing the method to complete the night to counteract the increasing speed of springlocks. You have to prioritise those on the verge of failing, while still having to focus on the mini arenas. This means we will always be on the verge of death by the end of the night, and makes the shift complete celebration feel very rewarding and triumphant after surviving such a stressful event. The only thing I can honestly say negatively about this night is that I wish there were two diverse death jump scares. The two respective deaths both always result in a mini arena jump scare. A simple fix could literally just be reversing the animation of the faceplate opening at the start of the night with the blood effect of the scooper at the end of the game. It just feels very underwhelming and lazy on Scott's end, but other than that I genuinely like this night compared to the others. The final night, other than the secret ending, is very underwhelming. Other than that, what might be the most chilling detail in any of the games, where the two technicians from Night 4 now lay hung on the stages. It catches you very off guard and is the only time in the series you actually see dead bodies until Secret of the Mimic. But does make you question why the hell Baby didn't just use one of those guys to escape. But other than that, we crawl through an empty Funtime auditorium which just feels kind of pointless. It would have been a lot more interesting if both Funtime Foxy and Balora's mechanics were implemented together, giving us one final test to reach the final minigame, which is probably my least favourite part of the game. I haven't been able to talk about this game's custom cursor, which is the size of a goddamn school bus, making sections where you have to very carefully click tiny buttons unnecessarily difficult.
6.
Sending Baby out of the room on a conveyor belt, for a split second you can see the faint glow of two eyes penetrating the darkness of parts and service. Still though, it would have been a hell of a lot more effective if Baby sprang to life, considering all the animatronics are coded to kidnap and murder children. It would honestly make sense even if she's trying to make us trust her. Now, super late into the video, it's probably worth mentioning the amount of details in every room we visit. They all feel very well planned out and well detailed. Masks, puppets and posters fill every room, with particular details either appearing in future releases, like the lights in Circus Gallery appearing in Scrap Baby's chest, creating great visual storytelling between both games that at some point, Baby returned underground to collect them. This is worth mentioning because the clown mask that once decorated the top of the room is now gone and appears on the face of what was once the Funtime animatronics, now called Ennard. This cutscene is one of the best endings to a FNAF game, being left completely vague. Also, Rick Astley over here getting goddamn miraculous eyes. There is, however, a completely different ending, which, to be computed, honestly, is so much better than what I already called one of the best endings to a FNAF game. But after all the complaints I've mentioned recently about the underwhelming, bare-bones gameplay, the private room feels like it's able to balance gameplay, ambience, and story all together. For the first time in this game, we are trapped in a sit-and-survive office and forced to survive until 6 AM. What I love so particular about this section of gameplay is it's able to implement gameplay from every single FNAF game up to this point. It has the vents from FNAF 2 and 3, the listening aspect from FNAF 4, and the doors of course from FNAF 1. It brings back very enjoyable gameplay loops from each game, providing a neat package to conclude a game going in such a unique direction. The visuals in this section of the game are very cool. Everything has a very dark blue wash and feels very ominous in general. The visual storytelling here is also phenomenal. The use of the office decoration suggests William Afton was either the voice from the Fedbear plush in FNAF 4 or was watching through the eyes, explaining the 3 cameras in the bedroom. The story in this section completely deviates from what we've seen in the game so far. Baby, who once acted very helpful and confident, now acts confused and genuinely caught off guard by us disobeying her orders and hiding in the private room from us. She sheds away the kind and innocent act and just becomes very predatorial and desperate to get in the room. Baby is not just some desperate, innocent person trying to help us escape. She's a sadistic, manipulative monster that will escape by any means necessary. The music in Sister Location is something I've neglected quite a bit throughout this video, so I thought I'd bring it up where it is used best. Leon Riskin perfectly matched the music to the sci-fi futuristic aesthetic, feeling oddly metallic but tonally perfect. The music, especially in this private room, feels perfectly overwhelming and can distract you from Ennard's voices, important to beating him in this section. We beat the private room by the sheer skin of our teeth and return home, in which Ennard follows us, leaving it on an ominous and not canon note. Not mentioning the custom night, which is something everyone calls the best part of this game, I overall think while Sister Location is objectively a bad game, it's a game I appreciate just as much as all the other FNAF games. It holds a very special place in my heart, as well as many others, and as I said at the start, I don't want anyone to take this video as me attacking anyone who despises this game or invalidate their opinion in any way. I surely wanted to share my opinion on what values I see in this game, whether or not the majority disagrees. With all that said, that's me done. See ya.